Now, before we even get to part A and part B, it asks us to write this in terms of this, where beta is between 0 and pi over 2, so in other words 0 to 90 if you prefer in degrees. So what we're going to use is, we're going to use this part here, and then we're just going to use our difference formula. So the difference formula for this is going to be r times by all of this. So in other words, r multiplied by cosine of the first one, cosine of the second one. And then with the cosine one, we choose the opposite of what this is, so negative becomes plus. Sine of the first one, and then sine of the second one. Now when we distribute the r through here, this is going to become r cosine theta, cosine beta, plus r sine theta, sine beta. And then now what we're going to try and do is, we're going to try and match up that identity with the expression given us to in the question. So in other words, 5 cosine theta plus 6 sine theta. So luckily here, I see cosine theta here and cosine theta here. So I'm going to set this expression equal to this expression. So what I'm really doing here is I'm going to compare coefficients in a second. So as these two things are the same, then the number of cosine thetas must be the same in both. So in other words, 5 equals r cosine beta. Now when we do the same for the other term, I can see sine theta and sine theta here. So when I compare the second term from each one, what I can say is that 6 sine theta equals r sine theta, sine beta. And then compare coefficients of sine theta. And then what I have here is 6 equals r sine beta. Now when I put these two equations together, and I'm going to bring this one down here, what I actually have here is a system of equations. I've got two equations and two unknowns, or a simultaneous equation if you prefer. And then I'm going to try and eliminate for one of the variables. Now if I actually divide this, then what I actually end up with is the r divided by r will cancel. Sine divided by cosine equals tan. And then to solve for tan, what I'm going to do is, solve for beta, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite of tan. So I'm going to do tan to the -1, or arctan if you prefer, of 6/5. Now it actually asks that this be in radians. So if we do it in degrees, I get 50.19 degrees. And if I go ahead and change that into radians, then I get approximately 0.88 radians. Now to find r, we can substitute back into one of these formulas to tell us what the value would actually be. Now also at this point, I think it's worth reminding you, there is a quick way that you can find the value of r. If we go back to the original equation, we can say this squared plus this squared will equal r squared. So another way of saying this is r squared equals 5 squared plus 6 squared. Now if we add those together, 25 plus 36 is 61. So r squared equals 61, therefore r equals the square root of 61. And then now we can go back and answer the first part of the question here. So r is radical 61, and our value here is approximately 0.88. Now we can go ahead and answer part A.